Hey guys, today I want to talk about finding yourself. A couple of tips that I have come up with that I believe have been very important for me, at least, to finding myself and identifying who I truly am. And that is a process, of course, that I'm still on, but it is one that's been fulfilling so far. So as you probably heard me say many times before, knowing who you are, knowing your own identity, is a very important thing for many reasons in life. And it's truly one of the basis of really being able to find fulfillment in life, is just knowing who you are, knowing who you truly are versus we spend a lot of time out in the world, out in society, and we have so many external environmental factors that has an effect on our identities, has an effect on how we behave, how we act around others, and what the things that we like and so on. But I think that taking some time and engaging on that process of really discovering yourself, your inner self, is a very fulfilling one. All right, without wasting any more time, let's get straight to them. Tip number one is to spend more time with yourself. Now, this one's probably an obvious one, but it may be one of the most overlooked ones. That time spent to yourself is very important. That time spent to yourself, like I said before, it separates you from those external factors, separates you from other people whose inputs and actions, they have an effect on you, and it sort of puts you in your own little spot and allows you to think a little bit more on yourself. It allows you to really get within your mind, get within your own thoughts, and as long as those thoughts aren't centered on negative things, and they could be, the whole point is to start questioning a little bit about yourself. Start thinking about your place in this world. Start reflecting on the past. Start reflecting on how life has been so far. Start answering those questions. Is this the person that I want to be? Am I at the point in life where I want to be? Am I where I want to be? And these questions are very important. I've said before that I went through several years of asking myself these questions, and this started pretty much around maybe 2012. I was in college during that point in time. I had just really gone through that negative state in my life, and I had beat that, and I got into this part of questioning what I want to get out of life, my purpose in life, and who I really was. So I went through several years, asking myself this question and pondering on it. And I truly believe that it has helped get me to the point that I am now, or helped me at least engage on that journey to fulfillment. So being able to ask yourself that question, being able to spend some time to yourself, and not be affected by other people. If you can afford that, however much time you can afford during your day, I really encourage you to do that, whether it's 10, 20 minutes, an hour if you can. These things are very important. So if you can get to that point where you can just go in your own room, or maybe flip your phone upside down, turn off your notifications and all that sort of stuff, so that you won't be distracted, because there will be many distractions. And that's one of the things when it comes to discipline, that is very important, that you are able to at least temporarily eliminate those distractions, so you can get in your mind, so you can start asking yourself those questions. So tip number two is not being afraid to separate yourself from people. And it sort of goes off of what I said in one, but I want to add this. Don't be afraid to eliminate people from your life if you need to. And that may sound negative. That may sound very harsh. But when it comes to it, you have to think about this. One of the main reasons for identifying yourself, one of the main reasons of discovering who you are, is so that you can find that place in life that you fit in, that place in life that you truly feel fulfilled. And so it is not to be selfish, but at the same time, you can't neglect yourself. You can't always answer to other people. You can't always, be there for other people. You can't always, be at a point where you're providing happiness for them, or you're, making their lives easier. And, that comes with friends, that comes with family, that comes with whoever. If you have people in your life that are consuming so much of your time, people that are, taking away that time in which I said in step one, where you can actually, spend some time to yourself. If you have people that are interfering with that, and you find that during your days, you don't have any time to devote towards yourself, you feel like your day was controlled by everyone else. If you get to that point, I think it is very important that you start thinking about, those perhaps those relationships or friendships that may just need to just take a step back. It's because it's very important. Like I said before, finding yourself is very important, and oftentimes other people can be interfering with that process, and they may not know it. It's not always an intentional thing. That's not always to say that having several people in your lives is a bad thing. But like I said, sometimes it can just interfere with that process. And maybe whether you're extroverted or introverted, maybe those things maybe factor in. I am introverted. I am an introvert. And perhaps it's one of those common known things that we like to spend time to ourselves, that we like to get in our own minds. And and you can do that whether you're an introvert or not. If you're an extrovert, perhaps you enjoy people a little bit more. But I do encourage you to, as I said before, be able to take that time to spend to yourself, because that is very important. And I think that when we go through life, when we're always affected by the external, we're always affected by society, always conforming to the norms and going along with the way everyone else behaves and things, then it can sort of shift us away from who we really are and our identity. And I like to call this life friction. It's just a process that goes on throughout years and years and years, from the moment we're born. And as we are exposed to more environmental factors, as we're exposed to the external world, we sort of separate ourselves from perhaps who we truly are. And that's, a process of growth. So, these things are very important, and having social relationships are very important. But sometimes, like I said, when you are consumed by those too much, sometimes it can have that negative effect of really separating you from who you are, and as a result, it creates friction in your life. So be able to eliminate people in your life, be able to separate people, or at least make people respect your time a little bit more. And I know that I had this problem for many years. I was much more. I tend to give more people of my time, and whenever they needed time, I was there. Whenever they needed someone to talk to, I was there. And then I reached this point in which I realized that I can't do that. I can't always do that. When I can, I will. But much more now, if someone needs to talk, I would much rather them at least tell me in advance, and we can schedule a call or something. And that versus being constantly bombarded with text messages and things throughout the day, which just eat into your time. So I encourage you to be able to do that. And I think that, with anything in life, with many situations, there are trade-offs. So with this one, you face the trade-off of either you're going to continue to be, surrounded and affected by other people, or you are able to, tell people, hey, perhaps maybe you just need to give me a little bit more time, or you're consuming too much of my time, and I need this time. And that's not to disappoint you or anything, but it's just something that I need. So that's very important. You have to truly value yourself, value your time, and value this process that you want to engage in when it comes to discovering yourself. Tip number 3 is to get outside. Nature has had its way with me of allowing me to, it's been a bit of a canvas or an environment that has allowed me to really be able to ask those questions, as I had mentioned before. Is provided that environment that has allowed me to think. And this happened through many years. I, of course, for those of you in the U.S. that are familiar with most of the states, Alabama, probably characterized by the amount of trees and forestry and all that sort of stuff. So, being in Alabama for most of my life has allowed me to be able to, it's been fairly easy to escape out into nature, out into trails, out into the woods or something, just to kind of escape. That's not to say that I was getting away from people or anything, but it's just something that has been, I guess it's been ingrained in me throughout my life. And I can recall back through the past several years, many of the times in which I just go out there and walk. Many of the times that I just go out and sit in, my family's pasture or something, and just, listen to the wind blow through the grass, or watch cattle just, walk around, and the birds and all the parts of nature and all this sort of stuff. And it really had a huge effect. And I know people that they hate the country a bit. They would not want to be out there. There are many complaints, bugs, getting dirty, and all these sorts of things. But to me, I have found nature to be very healing. So, no matter where you stay, if you stay in a city and you can find some trail or some place that, is a bit of escape from the traffic, a bit of escape from, all the people and all this sort of stuff. I encourage you to get out there and do that because, like I said, nature does have that effect. And, perhaps it's different for people, but throughout my life, I truly believe that being in the outdoors had an effect on who I've become in life now. And it's one of those things where now when I don't get a chance to be out there that as much as I'd like to, I can feel that little bit of friction being created in my life, and I start to get a little aggravated a little bit more. So I have to sometimes plan little trips out to places that's, a bit of an escape for me, or, try to find trails and places to walk out here. I stay in Kansas now, Kansas City, but, still surrounded by lots of outdoors here. So, it's one of those things that, like I said, it's been very beneficial for me, and I think it's going to be very beneficial for you as well. Tip number 4, study a new culture, perhaps learn a new language or travel if you can. When I decided that I was going to relocate to China, once I embarked on that process of learning Mandarin, and I know that's only one of the languages spoken, once I embarked on that process, I began to discover a lot more about the way things work, a lot more about those conversations or encounters that I've had throughout the past with someone who perhaps is from there and their English isn't that well. And one of the things that it has done for me is it has humbled me a lot, with knowing that, with seeing that barrier. And, I started to get excited about being the person on the opposite end of that, the person who, is not the person who can speak that native language in that country very well. And I started to get excited about that because I'm like, this allows me to have that opportunity to feel what other, foreigners may feel when they come here. And I think that, through the process of studying the history, the culture, it has allowed me to really realize just how different things are, being in the U.S. for all of my life versus, being in another country. And I truly believe that experiencing a different culture, learning a different culture, and learning how different things really are, it expands your world. When we are in one place for so long, you can think about that as being inside of a box, and the only thing that we know is what's inside of that box. So, when we look to the walls of that, when we see the reflection off of, our reflection of ourselves off of those walls, then we're basically seeing, what we have, our experiences that we have only, experienced here. We're basically seeing the norms that have, become a part of our lives that is a reflection of, everything around us, the way our countries work, the way our, laws, our norms, our standards, the way of, social behavior, all those things, we're only able to see them as a reflection of, the environment around us. But then you think about it, there's so many more places, so many more different cultures. And when you start to study a different culture, you realize just how different things may be. And, I think that has an effect of really finding your place in this world. And that is not to say that that's something that you should be looking for, your place in this world, as far as, staying in a different country or anything like that. I'm more so saying that, when you understand a little bit more about how different things are, and perhaps if you are able to put yourself in that environment, I think that's a way of learning a little bit more about ourselves. And I've spoken to several people who have also traveled there and have also spent time in China, and and I can probably say any other country, because it doesn't just apply to being there. But I've talked to other people who have been in different places, and that's one of the things that I've heard more times, than not, that you learn more about yourself. And that is, when I first started hearing that, I kind of had this thought already that that's one of the benefits of relocating. But that's, once I heard that, I was like, what, that makes a lot of sense. It gives you the opportunity to learn more about yourself, putting yourself in a different environment, perhaps starting all over from and experiencing that culture shock. Like I said, if you can't relocate to another country or anything like that, travel. And if you can't, readily travel to different places, hey, study another culture, learn a new language. And I think that being able to use that, and it would probably be a little bit more beneficial to use something or learn a language that you can probably at least speak to other people. And that is one of the things also when I started learning Mandarin, I was able to kind of communicate that in restaurants and other places that I've gone, and to see the smiles on people's faces when you do that, it seems like it brings a bit of joy on their faces that you are communicating to them in their language. And even though I probably sound like crap or I'm getting words wrong, perhaps it's the effort that brings that smile. And to me, it is one of the most joyful experiences that I've had with seeing those faces. So yeah, learn a little new language, learn about a different culture, study the history of a different culture, and just understand how different the world actually is versus the environment that you've grown up in. If you've already had experiences of traveling and being other places, then perhaps this is something that you already understand. But I think that is very important to get out of our own norms and to learn or experience different cultures, and that very well may show us or at least tell us things about ourselves that we never would have known otherwise. Tip number 5 is to meditate. Now this is something that is not easy as people may think. If you haven't started yet and you think that you can just jump into it and really get into this zone or whatever it is not that simple. It's not that easy. And it is something that even I still struggle with myself. So for example, if you're going to, I like to focus between either my heartbeat or my breathing, and I tend to lean a little bit more towards the heartbeat. And here's my sort of feeling about that. With the heart being something that has been beating within us even before we were even born, I feel that that's one of the most truest things that we have. And being able to focus on that, it's in a way, to me, it feels as if I am connecting with myself, and knowing that this thing that I am focused on is like a center point in my life, and that as long as that's alive, that my life is tied to that. All the experiences I'm able to have, they are tied to that. And so being able to focus on that core point, I think that there's something beautiful in that. There's something that's very that connects us with ourselves. And even with breathing, that's something that we've been doing from the moment that we were born. These are things that have been going on from the moment that before, well, pretty much from when we were born, both together. And I think that those things are just very true to ourselves. Those things are very true, and unlike our minds, they aren't necessarily influenced by the external factors. They aren't necessarily, we don't learn with those. They are simply a point or an action that just goes on in our life. And I think that being able to train yourself to focus on those things, in a way, is training yourself to focus on you, on yourself, and and being able to give yourself priority, or telling yourself that, hey, this is probably something that I should do. I've been doing it a lot more lately. I've kind of started doing it at my job. During lunch, I will usually take at least 30 minutes or 20 minutes to take that time to meditate. And I have found that it has made a huge difference on the rest of my day. And I think people probably wonder why I may be as calm as I am during certain points of the day or whatever. And this may may be influencing that. But I think that it is very, very beneficial to meditate. As I said before, it is just a way to connect you to things that are just very true and just facts about yourself. Your heart is beating, you're breathing. Focus on one of those, or whatever medium that you're going to focus on, and train yourself to do that. And this is going to benefit you in so many ways in life. And I have learned that usually when things are getting chaotic, I think back to when I'm meditating and something tells me, hey, focus back on this. And that is one of the benefits of meditating. It allows you to train yourself to be able to focus back on what you need to, despite all the things that are going on around you. Because like when you're meditating, there are a lot of noises, a lot of voices and things that you may hear, but being able to jump back onto focus of what you're on, that trains you in so many ways, and that is something that you can use in many different situations in life. So if you can afford time to do so, meditate. If you can take that hour that I mentioned earlier, take some of that to meditate. All right, last but not least, and tip number 6 is to challenge yourself. This sort of goes along with what I said before with learning a new culture. We can't live our lives in a box. We can't live our lives just doing the same things over and over. And we can, but that doesn't allow us to expand. It doesn't allow us to learn more about ourselves. And the thing about challenging yourself, if you're able to accept possible failure, you're able to accept risk, you're able to accept possible embarrassment, then you open yourself up for doing new things. And in the process of doing those things, you discover a lot more about yourself. You discover what you're capable of. And in that process, you'll learn, the things that you like and the things that you don't like. But the thing is, the only way that happens is if you, get outside of your comfort zone and try to have those experiences. Go to things that you probably wouldn't have gone through before, experience things that you probably would not have experienced before. Take on new challenges, do new things, and whatever it takes. It's not to say be careless, but if you have fear of doing things that you want to do, and those wants are truly an expression of ourselves, because they are coming from who we truly are. If you have that, you have that burning desire that perhaps you've had for years to do something, I think that that is our identity expressing itself, and that is our identities telling us to do this thing. And I feel that for the most part, those things bring us closer to fulfillment. Those things, and even if we do them, and if it's something that fails, or if we discover we don't like them, you know what, we can put that behind. We won't have that regret of not trying it. And when you look back, you're able to say that you did things, you tried things, and those things really come together and make your life what it is. So being able to challenge yourself, I think, is very, very important, because living in fear does not result in finding your identity. You have to be courageous enough to adventure out in life, to have new experiences, to experience new things, to learn new things, and challenge yourself. I think that, when something provides a difficult opportunity, it is a great opportunity to take. And perhaps the risk level, all these things sort of depend on what level you are in your life and where you are in your life. But overall, don't be consumed by the fear. Don't be paralyzed by the fear. Challenge yourself, and I think that it will contribute towards the journey of you finding yourself in life. So guys, that's all I want to talk about in this video. I hope I've said something that can be very beneficial to you. As I said before, I will continue to talk on these sort of related topics as far as identity. I may have expressed this before, but I love this topic. And there are plenty of other things that I do want to talk about in this area. So until next time, I hope you guys have enjoyed, and I'll talk to you later.